Prince Xander paced the ornate chambers of his royal starship, his brow furrowed in deep contemplation. The holographic displays before him painted a grim picture. A catastrophic power failure had crippled the planetary defense systems on his homeworld of Kyloran, leaving the kingdom vulnerable to attack from rival factions. The stakes were unimaginably high. Without a swift restoration of their defenses, Xander knew his people faced the very real prospect of all-out war with devastating consequences. But the damage was beyond the capabilities of Kyloran's technological resources, and time was running out. Sighing heavily, Xander turned to his most trusted advisor, General Calvor. "The situation grows more dire by the day, Calvor. Our repair efforts have stalled, and the Council is deadlocked on how to proceed. I fear we are running out of options." Calvor's expression was grave. "I understand your concerns, Your Highness, but you know as well as I that tradition dictates the royal family must handle such matters using our own resources and military might. Seeking aid from the humans on Earth would be seen as an unthinkable breach of protocol." Xander's jaw tightened with resolve. "I am well aware of the risks, General, but I cannot sit idly by while my people careen towards oblivion. The stakes are too high." Calvor shook his head. "The Council will never approve such an action. They view the humans as little more than primitive savages, unworthy of our attention. You would be risking not only your own reputation, but the very stability of the kingdom." "Then so be it," Xander declared, his eyes blazing with determination. "I am prepared to face their judgment. My people's survival is all that matters." Calvor regarded him with a mixture of admiration and trepidation. "Your Highness, you know I will support you, no matter the consequences, but I must urge caution. The humans are unpredictable, and their technology is centuries behind our own. What possible aid could they offer that would be worth the cost?" Xander's expression softened slightly. "I have studied the humans extensively, Calvor. Their history is filled with stories of innovation, resilience, and cooperation in the face of adversity. Perhaps with our guidance, they can provide the breakthrough we need to avert disaster." Calvor sighed heavily. "I pray you are right, Prince Xander. Very well, I will make the necessary arrangements for your journey to Earth, but I must insist that you take the utmost precautions. The stakes are too high to risk failure." Xander nodded, his resolve unwavering. "I understand, General. I will not let my people down." As Calvor hurried off to prepare the ship, Xander turned back to the holographic displays, his mind racing with contingency plans and strategies. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but he was determined to forge a path to salvation, no matter the personal cost. With a deep breath, he summoned his pilot and began issuing a series of coded instructions. Time was of the essence, and Xander's sleek, silver craft glided silently through the inky blackness of space, its advanced cloaking systems concealing it from the primitive sensors of the humans below. As the ship approached the designated coordinates, the young prince felt a mix of trepidation and resolve coursing through his veins. "Initiate landing sequence," he commanded, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "Maintain the cloaking systems until we touch down. I want to avoid any unnecessary attention." The pilot nodded solemnly, guiding the craft down towards a secluded clearing just outside a bustling human metropolis. Xander peered out the view screen, marveling at the sheer scale and complexity of the city sprawled before him. "So this is Earth," he murmured, his eyes narrowing. "I had no idea their settlements were so extensive." With a gentle thud, the ship settled onto the alien soil. Xander took a moment to straighten his regal robes, then activated the airlock. As the hatch slid open, he stepped out into the cool, night air, every sense on high alert. The distant hum of ground-based transportation and the faint scent of unfamiliar flora assaulted his senses, and he paused, listening intently. Suddenly, the muffled sound of voices reached his ears, rapidly growing louder. "Fan out and secure the perimeter. This is a sensitive situation. Let's try to avoid any escalation if possible, a gruff male voice commanded. Xander tensed, his hand instinctively reaching for the energy sidearm, concealed within his robes. But before he could react, a young human woman in a crisp uniform emerged from the undergrowth, her hands raised in a placating gesture. "Greetings, Your Highness," she said with a polite nod. "I'm Colonel Elena Flores of the Interplanetary Security Division. On behalf of the United Earth Directorate, welcome to our planet." Xander regarded the human woman warily. "You were expecting me, then?" "We detected your ship's approach and monitored its landing," Flores replied. "I must say, we were quite surprised to receive your request for a covered arrival and audience with our leadership. This is highly unorthodox, even for first contact protocols." Xander's eyes narrowed. "I apologize for the subterfuge, Colonel, but the circumstances that have brought me here are of the utmost urgency. My people face a crisis that threatens the very stability of my kingdom. I require an immediate audience with your highest authority to discuss a potential partnership." Flores considered this for a moment, then nodded. "I see. Well, in that case, allow me to escort you to our Directorate headquarters. I'm sure the Secretary General will be most interested to hear what you have to say." As Xander followed the human colonel through the bustling streets, he couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. The curious stares and muttered whispers of the humans around him were a stark contrast to the deferential reverence he was accustomed to on Kyloren, and the heavy security presence only served to heighten his awareness of just how precarious his position was on this alien world. Still, Xander refused to be cowed. He was here on a critical mission, and he would do whatever it took to convince these humans to aid his people, even if it meant shattering centuries of royal tradition. With a deep breath, he steeled his resolve and followed Flores through the towering skyscraper. Xander sat rigidly in the austere conference room, his eyes fixed on the imposing humans seated across the table. Secretary General Mikhail Volkov regarded him with a shrewd, almost predatory gaze, his fingers steepled thoughtfully as he considered Xander's request. "So let me see if I have this straight, Prince Xander," Volkov said in a measured tone. "You are asking the United Earth Directorate to provide critical technological assistance to your home planet, which is facing a potential security crisis. In exchange, you are offering what exactly?" Xander suppressed a wince at his condescending tone. "I am prepared to share advanced Kyloran techniques for defense system design and maintenance that could greatly benefit your own military capabilities," he replied evenly. "Additionally, I believe a strategic alliance between our two civilizations could open the door to unprecedented technological and cultural exchange." Volkov raised a skeptical eyebrow. "Forgive me for being blunt, Your Highness, but your people have had the opportunity to make contact and share knowledge with us for centuries. Yet you have chosen to remain isolated, viewing us as little more than savages. Why should we trust that your motives are genuine now, when your very survival is at stake?" Xander felt his jaw tighten with frustration. "I understand your suspicion, Secretary General. But I assure you, my people are facing a crisis of unimaginable proportions. Our planetary defenses hang by a thread. Without your aid, the consequences could be catastrophic. Surely you can empathize with the desperate measures one must take to protect their own." Volkov held his gaze for a long, tense moment, then sighed heavily. "Very well. I will convene my top military and scientific advisors to evaluate the viability of your proposal. In the meantime, you will be escorted to secure accommodations, where you will remain under observation until a decision has been made." Xander opened his mouth to protest, but a wave of Volkov's hand silenced him. "I'm afraid I cannot take any risks, Your Highness. The stakes are far too high, both for your people and for ours. You will cooperate fully, or your request will be denied. Do I make myself clear?" Biting back his pride, Xander nodded stiffly. "Understood, Secretary General." As he was led away by a pair of armed guards, Xander couldn't help but feel a sinking sense of dread. He had come to this alien world seeking salvation, but now his fate rested in the hands of these suspicious, unpredictable humans. If they refused to aid him, his people were doomed. Xander's musings were interrupted by the arrival of a young woman in a rumpled lab coat, who greeted the guards with a casual wave. "I'm here to escort the prince to his accommodations," she said, flashing Xander a lopsided grin. "Name's Area, by the way. Pleased to meet you." Xander eyed the human skeptically. "I was under the impression I would be confined to a cell, not given the luxury of an escort." Area shrugged. "Hey, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just following orders. Come on, let's get you settled in." As Xander fell into step beside the human, he couldn't help but wonder if perhaps there was more to these primitives than met the eye. Perhaps with the right approach, he could find an unlikely ally in this area. After all, the fate of his kingdom rested on. Xander stared in fascination as Area guided him through the bustling human diplomatic compound, her animated gestures and rapid-fire explanations barely keeping pace with the array of advanced equipment surrounding them. "And this is our main negotiation suite," Area said, leading him into a spacious, technology-laden room. "We use these holographic interfaces to coordinate with representatives from all over the world. It's like having everyone in the same room, even if they're thousands of miles apart." Xander nodded, his fingers tracing the smooth surfaces with a sense of reverence. "Remarkable. Your people have made incredible strides in communication and collaboration, despite your technological limitations." Area grinned. "Limitations, huh? Guess you Kylorans haven't seen anything yet." She gestured towards a nearby workstation, where a complex diplomatic schematic was suspended in midair. "Just wait till you see what we've been cooking up for your little security crisis." Xander felt a spark of hope ignite within him. "You mean, you believe you can devise a solution?" "Well, that's what the big brains upstairs are trying to figure out," Area said, her expression turning serious. "But let me tell you, your timing couldn't be better. We've been working on a revolutionary new approach to defense system design that utilizes advanced redundancy protocols and automated fail-safe algorithms. If we can integrate some of your Kyloran military techniques, it just might be the breakthrough you need." Xander's eyes widened. "That is remarkably fortuitous. May I?" He gestured towards the schematic, and Area nodded, tapping a few commands into the console. As Xander studied the intricate hologram, his mind raced with possibilities. The core principles behind the human system were sound, but there were several key areas where Kyloran expertise could dramatically enhance its effectiveness. Reaching into his robes, he produced a slender datapad and began furiously inputting commands. Area watched in fascination as lines of alien code danced across the display, seamlessly integrating with the human schematic. "Whoa, what are you doing?" she asked, leaning in for a closer look. "Apologies, I should have asked first," Xander murmured, his fingers flying across the interface. "I'm simply making a few minor adjustments to your defense system design, incorporating some Kyloran protocols and defensive algorithms that should drastically improve the system's reliability." Area whistled low under her breath. "Well, I'll be. If I didn't know any better, I'd say you just solved our little security crisis in about 10 seconds flat." Xander looked up, a small smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "Perhaps, but the true test will be when we implement these modifications and observe the results. I must admit, I'm rather eager to see how it performs." "You and me both, Your Highness," Area said, grinning. "Simon, let's get this show on the road. I'll call in the rest of the team, and we can start prepping the prototype right away." As Area hurried off to summon her colleagues, Xander allowed himself a moment of cautious optimism. Perhaps his gamble to seek aid from these humans was not as foolhardy as he had initially feared. If this collaboration proved successful, it could not only save his people, but also forge the beginnings of a lasting alliance between their two civilizations. With a renewed sense of purpose, Xander turned his attention back to the holographic schematic. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity as Xander worked tirelessly alongside Arya and her team of human diplomats, refining the defense system prototype and preparing it for field testing. Despite some initial skepticism, the humans had embraced his insights and technical expertise with remarkable enthusiasm. "I don't know how you do it, but every time you tweak one of our algorithms, it's like you're unlocking hidden potential we never even knew was there," Arya marveled as they hunched over the latest batch of test results. "It's almost as if you have some kind of sixth sense for this stuff." Xander allowed himself a small, proud smile. "It is the result of centuries of Kyloran research and training, Arya. Our people have dedicated their lives to mastering the intricacies of military strategy and technology." "Well, whatever it is, it's working like a charm," Arya said, gesturing to the holographic display. "The latest trials show a 30% increase in defensive system response times compared to our original prototype. I think we're really onto something here." Xander nodded, his expression growing contemplative. "Indeed. However, I cannot help but wonder, why has it been so easy?" Arya blinked. "Easy? You call this easy? Your Highness, I haven't slept more than 4 hours a night since you got here." "That is not what I mean," Xander said, his brow furrowing. "Forgive me, but I am accustomed to a great deal more resistance when it comes to sharing Kyloran technology with outsiders. Yet your people have welcomed my contributions without hesitation." Arya shrugged. "Well, you did come to us in a time of need. I guess the Secretary General figured it was worth taking a chance, even if it meant setting aside a few traditions." Xander's eyes narrowed. "Or perhaps there are those who would prefer to maintain the status quo, regardless of the cost." Before Arya could respond, a sudden blaring alarm echoed through the compound, followed by the frantic shouts of nearby diplomats. "What's happening?" Xander demanded, already moving towards the commotion. I'm not sure, but it looks like some kind of security breach in the prototype containment field," one of the staff cried. "The fail-safes aren't responding. We're losing control." Xander's heart raced as he watched the holographic displays flicker and distort. Whatever was happening, it was clear that someone had deliberately sabotaged their work. His suspicions had been correct all along. "Arya, we must shut down the prototype immediately," he cried. "There is no time to waste. Lives could be at stake." Arya's face was etched with panic as she began frantically inputting commands, but to no avail. The containment field continued to destabilize, and Xander could already hear the distant sounds of evacuation alarms blaring throughout the compound. In that moment, Xander knew they were running out of time. Whirling around, he fixed Arya with a fierce, determined gaze. "Listen to me carefully. I am going to attempt to manually override the system. You must stall for time and evacuate the area. Can I trust you to do this?" Arya hesitated, then nodded resolutely. "You got it, Your Highness. Just be careful, okay?" Xander offered her a small, sad smile. "I shall do my best." With that, he turned and raced towards the heart of the failing prototype, his mind racing as he sought a solution that could avert disaster. Whoever was behind the Xander's fingers flew across the holographic interface, his brow furrowed in concentration as he fought to regain control of the destabilizing prototype. All around him, the compound was in chaos as Arya and the other diplomats scrambled to evacuate the area. "Your Highness, you need to get out of there," Arya shouted over the blaring alarms. "The containment field is collapsing. It's too dangerous." "I cannot abandon this now, Arya," Xander called back, his voice strained with effort. "There must be a way to stabilize the system before it's too late." He could feel the energy field surrounding him fluctuating wildly, the very air crackling with electricity. Gritting his teeth, Xander poured every ounce of his focus into the task at hand, probing the underlying code for any vulnerabilities he could exploit. Suddenly, a flash of insight struck him. "Of course," he exclaimed, his fingers flying across the interface. "The primary power conduits. If I can reroute the flow, I may be able to create a feedback loop to stabilize the field." Arya watched in awe as Xander's deft manipulations began to slow the prototype's descent into chaos. But just as it seemed they might avert disaster, a massive explosion rocked the compound, sending debris raining down around them. "What the?" Arya whirled around, her eyes widening in horror as she caught sight of a heavily armed tactical squad advancing through the smoke. "Oh no, they're trying to destroy the prototype." Xander spared a glance at the approaching soldiers, his heart pounding. "Arya, you must evacuate immediately. This is no longer simply about our experiment. There are forces at work who will stop at nothing to prevent our success." "But I can't just leave you here," Arya protested, her face etched with concern. "You must," Xander insisted, his voice brooking no argument. "I will hold them off as long as I can. Get to safety and alert the authorities. They need to know the truth about what is happening here." Arya hesitated for a long, agonizing moment, then nodded reluctantly. "Okay, but I'm coming back for you. Just stay alive, all right?" Xander offered her a small, sad smile. "I shall do my best." As Arya disappeared into the chaos, Xander turned his attention back to the prototype, his mind racing. He had to find a way to stabilize the system and prevent the soldiers from destroying their months of hard work. But more than that, he had to uncover the root of this conspiracy and expose the truth, no matter the personal cost. Taking a deep breath, Xander steeled his resolve and stepped out from behind the protective field, confronting the advancing squad head-on. Their weapons were raised, but he refused to back down, his hands outstretched in a placating gesture. "Stand down," he commanded, his voice ringing with authority. "I am Prince Xander of Kylorin, and I demand to know the meaning of this outrageous interference." The squad leader paused, his brow furrowing in confusion. "Prince, what are you?" But before he could finish, a deafening explosion rocked the compound, sending them all staggering. Xander's eyes widened as he realized the prototype's containment field had finally collapsed, unleashing a torrent of raw, uncontrolled energy. In that moment, he knew they were all in grave danger. Bracing himself, he prepared to face whatever lay ahead. Xander stood before the assembled leaders of Earth and Kylorin, a weary but resolute expression on his face. The last several days had been a whirlwind of chaos, danger, and revelation, but now the time had come to present the fruits of their hard-won collaboration. Beside him, Arya fidgeted nervously, casting occasional glances at the stern-faced Kylorin counselors who eyed her with skepticism. Xander placed a reassuring hand on her arm, offering her an encouraging nod. "Members of the United Earth Directorate and the Kylorin High Council," he began, his voice ringing with authority, "I stand before you today to unveil a technological breakthrough that has the potential to forever change the relationship between our two civilizations." He gestured to the large holographic display behind him, which sprang to life, showcasing the advanced defense system they had developed. "As you are all aware, Kylorin faces a grave security crisis, one that threatens the very stability of my kingdom. It was this dire situation that led me to seek aid from your people." Xander paused, his gaze sweeping across the assembled leaders. "What began as a last-ditch effort has blossomed into a remarkable collaboration, one that has not only averted catastrophe on my homeworld, but has also opened the door to unprecedented technological and cultural exchange." He turned to Arya, offering her a small smile. "Through the tireless efforts of my human counterparts and the integration of Kylorin military expertise, we have created a defense system that can rapidly respond to even the most complex and unpredictable threats. Its applications are limitless. It could revolutionize security protocols on both our worlds, and pave the way for future joint ventures in fields ranging from space exploration to interstellar diplomacy. Arya stepped forward, her expression a mix of pride and trepidation. Yeah, what the prince said. This thing is a total game changer. It's like taking the best of both our civilizations and mashing them together into one supercharged package. We're really excited to see what the future holds. Xander suppressed a smile at Arya's awkward enthusiasm, then turned back to the audience. However, as you are no doubt aware, our path to this breakthrough has not been without its challenges. There were those who sought to derail our efforts, who wished to maintain the status quo and prevent the forging of an alliance between our peoples. His gaze hardened as he fixed the Kyloran counselors with a pointed stare. I speak, of course, of the saboteurs who nearly cost us everything. It is only through the bravery and quick thinking of my human partners that we were able to uncover this conspiracy and bring those responsible to justice. Arya fidgeted uncomfortably as all eyes turned to her. Yeah, no big deal. We just, saved the day. Totally normal day at the office. Am I right? Xander chuckled softly, then raised his hand to silence the murmurs that had broken out among the Kyloran delegation. But that is all in the past now. Today, we stand before you with a solution that can benefit both our worlds and a foundation upon which to build a lasting alliance. He turned to Secretary General Volkov, offering him a measured nod. Secretary General, I believe the time has come for our peoples to come together, to put aside our differences and work towards a brighter future. What say you? Volkov stroked his chin contemplatively, then a slow smile spread across his face. Prince Xander, I believe you. In the weeks that followed the historic unveiling of the defense system technology, Xander found himself at the center of a whirlwind of activity as the alliance between Earth and Kyloran began to take shape. Shuttling back and forth between the two worlds, he immersed himself in a dizzying array of diplomatic meetings, joint training exercises, and cultural exchanges. It was a far cry from the staid, tradition-bound existence he had known on Kyloran, and Xander reveled in the energy and dynamism of his new role as a bridge between civilizations. I have to admit, Your Highness, I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around all of this, Arya confessed one evening as they strolled through the bustling streets of the Earth capital. Just a few months ago, we were practically at each other's throats. Now we're talking about joint space missions and intelligence sharing. It's kind of mind-boggling. Xander chuckled softly. I understand your bewilderment, Arya. The pace of change has been nothing short of dizzying, but I believe it is a testament to the power of what can be achieved when we set aside our preconceptions and embrace the unknown. He gestured to the vibrant cityscape surrounding them, a wistful expression on his face. When I first arrived on Earth, I confess I viewed your people with a mixture of trepidation and disdain. The idea of collaborating with such primitives was anathema to everything I had been taught. Arya raised an eyebrow. Ouch. Way to make a girl feel special. Xander smiled ruefully. Forgive me. I was a product of my upbringing, just as you were. But through our work together, I have come to see the true potential of your species, your boundless curiosity, your innovative spirit, your capacity for empathy and cooperation. He placed a hand on Arya's arm, his gaze earnest. You humans have shown me that the barriers between our civilizations are not insurmountable. With open minds and a willingness to learn from one another, we can achieve so much more than we ever could alone. Arya nodded slowly, a thoughtful expression on her face. I think you're right. Look at what we accomplished with that defense system project. We took the best of both our worlds and made something truly incredible. Imagine what else we could do if we put our minds to it. Precisely, Xander replied, which is why I have decided to remain on Earth, at least for the foreseeable future. Arya blinked in surprise. Wait, really? But what about your kingdom? Your people? Xander smiled reassuringly. They are in good hands, Area. The crisis has been averted, and the technology we developed will continue to benefit Kyloran for generations to come. But my true calling now lies in forging this new alliance, in serving as a conduit between our worlds, and unlocking the boundless potential that lies before us. He squeezed her arm gently. I hope you will join me in this endeavor. Your insights and enthusiasm have been invaluable, and I believe there is so much more we can accomplish together. Aria's face broke into a wide grin. Well, when you put it that way, how can I say no? Count me in, Your Highness. Let's go build a better future. As they strode off, side by side, Xander couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement and possibility. The road ahead would undoubtedly be filled with challenges, but he knew that with Aria and the rest of the humans by his side, anything was possible. This was the dawn of a new era, an era of interstellar ambassadors, where the divide between civilizations would be spanned by curiosity